So thanks for joining us today, Jack. It's great to have you here. Do you want to go ahead and let us know kind of about your role and what Optimum Comp Advantage does?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for Optimum Comp Advantage, and we are a compensation consulting and outsourcing firm. So what that means is we can come in and do projects to take a look and see if you've got good compensation practices or what adjustments you need to make from an executive standpoint all the way through your entire organization. Or we work with a lot of companies where they outsource their compensation organization to us. So we can go in there, create best practices, work with the human resource team on an ongoing basis. For those companies that perhaps aren't large enough to afford those sorts of positions because they are very expensive, yet still need that sort of help in order to be effective with driving the right performance based on compensation.
So there's a lot happening right now, call it, kind of the post-COVID reshuffle, obviously everybody says the great resignation, whatever the title might be. But compensation is a big part of that. And I know with a lot of our clients on the recruiting side, we're also seeing that, a lot of these companies haven't really done much in the way of level setting for several years. I'm curious, what are you seeing out there in terms of companies trying to level set and figure out if they're on par with the market?
Well, I mean, that's a really good point. Are they actually even doing that? What we're seeing a lot of is people just doing what they can to retain talent as well as attract talent. And I think, that's what they have to do in some instances. But really what we try and help them do, or what they should be doing, is taking a look at it and saying, how are we remaining competitive? Perhaps if they are losing people, what are the key reasons we are losing people? I mean, compensation obviously is important. You want your compensation plans or your compensation structure to align with the goals of the organization. Are they aligned? Are we driving the right behaviors? Are people getting rewarded for those behaviors? Or, is it, only the salespeople seem to get rewarded and the rest of the organization is not, or vice versa? So what is truly the alignment of where you are as a business and what you should be doing? And then from that also, is it sustainable for your organization? I think a lot of folks are jumping in and just trying to save folks, and maybe they're not thinking through, is this a sustainable approach? What effect is this going to have on everything from pricing to what we can do from an employee benefit standpoint, and all those different factors that go into running a business? So there's a lot more to it than just saying, okay, we'll offer a few more bucks or a few more shares,
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I like your point also on the sales side, where it's a little bit easier to figure out, okay, so how do we level set? What is the market dictating on the sales side in terms of the variable compensation, that kind of piece too? But we have, for example, one client that we're working with on a very high level role, and he informed us this week that he just lost 2 people from the operations department. Right. Yep. And he has a very strong culture, and the organization is very well regarded. They have long tenures, but they hadn't really done much in the way of level setting on compensation for a while. And unfortunately, it's challenging. Another example on the marketing side, we have someone that we know, and he's been there for about 3.5 years at his company. He was able to negotiate a 45% increase in salary. Because they hadn't done any kind of, again, level setting or market trend analysis for so long. So to your point, it's beyond just the sales side. It crosses operations and marketing and quality control and every place else.
Yeah, I mean, and part of, what do you consider part of compensation? Is it the quality of life, as a lot of people have discovered over the last couple of years, of being able to work from home and do a little bit more balancing of their life? Or is it strictly just dollars? And what we're obviously coming to find out is that it's a combination of those things. And, the operations people, like you've been mentioning here, that maybe, aren't driving per se new business growth, but are the ones that are retaining business. You've also seen with the advent of customer success, the importance of revenue retention and growth. And how are you rewarding those folks, and how are you making sure they're aligned to company goals so they can help you do that? So there's a lot of different factors there versus just saying we're strictly looking at growth and the only people that drive that is sales. And that certainly is not the case. And I think a lot of companies are recognizing it. So that's why you're seeing some of this movement of a COO or director of operations or somebody in the marketing, saying, okay, what's the value that they're going to bring bring to the business. So it's definitely been a shakeup over the last couple of years. And, the market's making an adjustment right now, just like the stock market makes adjustments. The market's making adjustment from a compensation standpoint.
Yeah, no, very true, very true. And I think, there's been so many headlines out there too about how this is now the time of the employee, if you will, or kind of the workers, or the pendulum has swung back toward the worker side, no matter what level of position they happen to be in, which
Absolutely.
is really true. I think, one of the things that we see on our side with recruiting also is the fact that, it's not just compensation, like you said, it's always, comp is always kind of one of the top three things that really motivates people, but a lot of it's culture now. And, I don't know what you're seeing out there, but, packages that we see are now including more flexibility in terms of working from home, in terms of, no longer tracking vacation time, those kinds of things. Are you guys seeing any of that on a broader scale now as well?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the working from home piece. If you are unable or unwilling to do that, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. Obviously, if you're in manufacturing, somebody on a manufacturing floor, whatever the case may be, it's a little different situation. But for the jobs that now are prevalent in the U.S., they can be done remotely, and for the most part. And if that's not part of it, that is a key part of your compensation package of whether or not they can do that. And so I think that's probably the one that I would say is most key. And the other part, you brought it up, is quite frankly, people are emboldened now. They know they can go out and find new opportunities. So what is it about where they work, the people they work for, the boss they work for, that is compelling for them to stay? And then finally, obviously, when you go to the compensation's got to match that. You may love a place and you may want to stay there forever, but if there's an imbalance there, or if the compensation isn't driving the right performance, not just for you, but if you see others that perhaps are not doing their fair share and you feel like, gosh, I'm the only one that's doing this, it creates that dissatisfaction or that turbulence in the relationship that, what I call that is noise. You want to eliminate that noise out of the employment relationship with someone. So eliminate the noise. Know you're competitive. Know that you're giving them the things they need to be successful, so they can focus on what it is they need to do in order to drive forward your business in the way that you want.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. The other thing that we see out there also as a big change, and this is a trend that was certainly taking hold, long before COVID, was the fact that, compensation is so much more visible and really kind of transparent these days, if you will, right? Where people are no longer, it's no longer taboo to share what you're making, right? So you've got sites like Vault or Glassdoor, where it's much easier than just going on a salary.com, which tends to be very skewed. But and a lot of companies still are still surprised when they hear that somebody finds out what somebody else is making, right? But the reality is that transparency is it's out there, whether you like it or not, it's out there.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And the other part that changed a few years ago from a legal standpoint is companies cannot ask you what you made at your last job. So it is about the value that you are bringing to the organization. So the individual, if they are prepared and they know what their value is and they've been able to kind of get this information, companies can't fake it anymore. They need to be competitive on how they're positioning the organization, what the position will do, and what they're offering from a total package standpoint, because that is out there, and there's a lot more information than people used to have. And if somebody's coming from a position where they worked their way up in a small company that perhaps couldn't afford them, and they're going to work for someone else who has maybe a better structure, they shouldn't be penalized for the fact that they earned less. It's about the value that they bring.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I think it's easier now for smaller companies to compete with the big boys, because it's not just flat, cash compensation. Like you said, there are so many other things that are out there as well. And being a transparent company, having good, strong communication with your staff, no matter what level they're at, that really is a very big perk, and people really appreciate that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I know the days where having worked for companies where they, just said, just focus on what you're doing. You don't need to know this. And you were asked, I remember asking about a company I worked with where we based our pricing on per employee, because we did human capital outsourcing, human capital management outsourcing. And there was a profit number they wanted us to hit. And so I remember they were looking at cutting staff at each one of the offices, and I was running a San Diego office. And I said, well, tell me the number I got to hit from a profitability standpoint to keep my people, because HR in California is very different than HR in Texas and Florida. And so we actually need more handholding. And they couldn't tell me that number, or they weren't willing to tell me that number. They just wanted to cut overhead. And that doesn't work with folks anymore. If you're not going to be straight up with them and treat them as professionals, eventually over time that erodes trust, and they're going to start looking somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said earlier, there's just too many other opportunities out there that they're hearing about, that they're reading about, or that they're actually getting calls about as well.
Yeah,
that they're not beholden to one employer. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So Jack, this is really helpful. If people want to get a hold of you directly and learn more about Optimum Comp Advantage, how do they do that?
Best way to get a hold of me is email, and that's jack.kelly, Kelly, at optimumcompadvantage.com. Obviously, you can still go to the website and check us out there and submit it there as well. So be happy to talk to somebody, even if it's just informational or they have a few questions. Happy to do that and help them out any way we can.
Great. Thanks. Appreciate your time today.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you letting us do this.
Thanks.